John, let's talk some NFL and the LIV golf deal.
And Tom Brady, of course. That's a guy who knows how to host a podcast, Andrew.
If I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already fucking done it.
And we're back. The Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. On the board, master of drops, Say It Ain't So Productions, Chris Mason. You hear all those drops? That's coming from Say It Ain't So Productions and Chris Mason. I also the Sports Business Journal, where he works now. John, you had a great prediction. You told us going into this year, LIV was going to do the deal with the CW. Before you go any further, Mason and I, we got this clip. Let's play this clip from the preview show for 2023. Here's John Ourand.
They're going to do a deal. It's not going to be a big deal. They're going to patch something together with one of the fifth or sixth broadcast networks, like the CW or something like that. And they're going to be able to try to get on in that way.
So that's where you think they end up, like the CW?
Yeah, I think that
there's smoke there. Or you're just throwing the CW out there.
There's a little bit of smoke there.
That's some nice work. Good job by you, John.
Should I do fake modesty here and talk about blind squirrels or whatever? No, that was a good one. I'm pretty happy with that one, Andrew.
Yeah, that one worked out. All right, who's up? Who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
John, I'm going to take it first. My who's up is Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. Here's the biggest reason they're my who's up. Not too many people are talking about them. Just the right amount of people are talking about them. What I mean by that, when you're a new crew, we saw this for years with Monday Night Football before they got Buck and Aikman. They were constantly the focus. Olsen and Burkhardt aren't the focus of the broadcast. And you're going to say, wait, that's a very low bar you're setting. No, it's not. You don't want to be a distraction. You don't want to be making mistakes. You want people to say that what is he talking about all the time? And they've done better than that. They've been good so far. I'm still holding out. I'm not fully giving my seal of approval. Not that that's that important.
Two more weeks to go. Yeah.
Until the Super Bowl, that's why I do the big review. At least for me, that's how I look at it. And also, I'm not anointing anybody year one on a number one crew. You got to wait. It takes years. We've seen groups like Nance and Romo regress. So you got to be careful what you say in terms of if again, this is not that important, but it is important. But ultimately, here's the thing. They've been good. They had the San Francisco-Dallas game last week, and they did a good job. And Fox's numbers have been through the roof with them as the number one crew. And now they have Tom Brady in the wings, but Olsen he's establishing himself. He's not there yet, but he's getting there where you say, what, this guy can be a number one. And even some people are already saying, well, do they need Tom Brady?
My who's up, I always go to business executives for my who's up, but this week it's Joe Burrow. We all owe Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase a huge debt of thanks just for winning last weekend's game in Buffalo. It's keeping us away from the awful idea of a neutral site conference championship game in the NFL. If the Bills had won, if Joe Burrow and the Bengals had lost, the Bills would have played the Chiefs in Atlanta. And of course, this was a unique circumstance, but it would have allowed the NFL a chance to test this neutral site idea and possibly move forward with it. The league wants to do this. They would get a ton more in sponsor revenue. They would be able to handle their corporate clients more efficiently in a neutral site game where they could plan for it a little bit more. Mike Florio, he said the interest in a neutral site game inside league offices is quote unquote very high. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer called it inevitable. It's sort of like a college bowl formula that they have it. But Andrew, I'm just telling you right now, it's a terrible idea. It's not fan friendly. It's not TV friendly. There's nobody outside of the NFL who wants a corporate crowd for these championship games and the Super Bowl on top of that. Let's hope this is something that dies on a vine. Thank you, Joe Burrow.
Chris Mason, I need boos for that because I'm with John with that one. If the NFL does it, I need a big resounding boos in the background there.
Boo this man! Oh, no! We suck again!
You didn't even comment on that. You gonna give me a comment? Like I just left. So I like said that, and then you don't even say anything. All right.
Wait, did I need to say something? You were agreeing with me.
You agree with it. Then I did the booze, and you give me a comment, then I go to my who's down.
All right.
Teamwork.
You're right.
All right, whatever. You want to keep it raw? We'll keep it raw.
Give it to us raw and wriggling.
All right. Who's down? Fox Sports' remotes. All right. We banged the Australian Open and ESPN last week for not being down under at the event with their top announcers, Chris Fowler, etc. That's terrible. Now Fox Sports, they're not at big college basketball games between UCLA, number 5 in the country, and Arizona State, who's 3rd in the Pac-12. And here's the bottom line about all this. If you want to be known as second-rate broadcasters, continue doing remote broadcasts. I'm not saying you can never do a remote broadcast. You know, ESPN Plus, for example, does 8 trillion games. If a few of them are remote, understandable. When the top 10 team in the country in college basketball is playing, you need to be there. You could say, all right, we're going to save money. And I don't know. I asked how much money they're saving. I asked both ESPN and Fox Sports. They didn't give me a number. But even if maybe it's a good number, but you're just going to be known for your production, for being second rate. That doesn't mean you don't have some top rate production. Of course, we know Fox Sports does a great job on the NFL. They're going to do a great job in the Super Bowl, most likely. And their top baseball games, they do a tremendous job in the World Series, etc. But if you're going to do a bunch of games, college football, their 4th game this year, maybe 4th or 5th game was always remote. They ran into problems. You're just going to be known as a second rate broadcaster. So invest in that technology, save your shekels. But at the end of the day, if you care about your brand, it's going to hurt your brand. And I do think it's going to hurt young broadcasters. You're going to really want to go to places that are doing remote. And I don't know how they're going to develop those guys. I mean, I guess, what they've done recently is they got Joe Davis, they got Adam Amin, they got Jason Benetti, all from ESPN. I guess they could do that, but they want to develop their own people. They're going to need, you have to be at games. You can't just be in a studio in LA.
Yeah, at what point is George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12 going to complain about that? I mean, this is a drum we've been beating. They want the announcers at the games. I couldn't agree more.
Booze.
Did we get more booze in there? All right, who's down? Boo. Kathleen Finch, who runs Warner Brothers Discovery U.S. Networks. Andrew, did you see the Power Slap League?
I did.
I mean, that's
what I saw. A clip. I didn't watch.
Yeah, the clips. I didn't sit down for it, but the clips that went viral were tough to watch. This is the league where people stand across from each other and take turns slapping each other as hard as they possibly can. It's content that's really popular on social media. It originated in Russia, so of course, a U.S. TV executive decides to give it airtime on a general entertainment channel. TBS, by the way, is the home to reruns of Friends, Young Sheldon, and the Power Slap League. You get to see people concussed in real time. One of the slappies in the viral videos was slapped so hard, he went into what doctors call that fencing posture, that is always a sign of a concussion. So, interestingly, this deal was not done through Warner Brothers Discovery Sports department. It was Finch and Entertainment, and she gave an interview to Deadline where she called the show an experiment, and she compared the Power Slap League's audience to the AEW audience on Turner. I wouldn't be surprised if Rob Manfred and Adam Silver and Gary Bettman, people that have their games on TNT and TBS right next to this Power Slap League, start to pressure the company to really ditch it altogether.
Yeah, and the other thing about that, they didn't really do that well. They lost. They had the AEW lead-in, and they lost a lot of that lead-in. The number was okay. And then obviously in light of the Dana White being caught on tape slapping his wife, it's just a terrible, terrible look for TBS.
Yeah, I'm told they're likely going to go at least for the 2nd episode, maybe a 3rd, but I can't see this lasting for too long there. All right, let's get into the topics. We just got through the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and the announcers that were calling it, once again, they dominated my social media feeds and timelines about Tony Romo. People seem to be getting more irritated with with how he's calling the games. Your who's up, Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson. I didn't see a lot on them as well. Andrew, this is your bailiwick. It's in your wheelhouse. What did you see?
I think part of this is the free agency that we saw this offseason. And I think there's always been a focus on the broadcasters. I think you go way back, probably before even Howard Cosell, but Howard Cosell was a lightning rod. And I think those in the media for years have sort of said, it's just like a small group that cares about this. But I don't think so. First off, the NFL, for example, is a $1 billion business. These deals are for billions of dollars. And now these announcers are making so much money that the focus is on them for the 3 hours a week that they're on. And so, Romo and Nance, we've been pointing this out since last year. They've regressed for whatever reason. They don't seem to be doing the same broadcast together. And, most of it has been pointed at Romo, which is fair. We've talked about this, is the preparation there. I actually thought the first half he was a little bit better, a little bit more low key in terms of not overdoing it. But it's an interesting thing for Tony Romo because you think about it from his perspective. Right out of the gate, he was a big success. 3 years in, he changed his salary from $3 million a year to $17.5 million a year with $500,000 in benefits. And so when you look at it, why would you change if you're Tony Romo? It's pretty much working for him. But I do think that tide has sort of switched a little bit. And I think it's just here's the bottom line for Nance and Romo. It's just the coherence of the broadcast, of being together, being on the same page, and just making you feel like they'd be sitting next to each other in the seats if they weren't at the game. So that's for them. That's my number one thought.
I'm going to give a very partial defense to Tony Romo. My Twitter feed, there was vitriol about how he was calling some plays. He called one pass into the end zone. He goes, that was a perfect pass. And then in the next sentence, he goes, well, it was a little wide. It's either a perfect pass or it was a little wide. But I know people that are casual football fans, NFL fans that are tuning in for the playoffs that, they don't want the toned down, muted Tony Romo in the first half. They like that excitement. It's almost like a childlike excitement about like, I can't believe how excited I am to be calling this game for you out there. And I think that it doesn't conform to a typical broadcast booth that or what we would consider the top quality broadcast booth, but it is different enough that it does draw some of the more casual fans in. And I'm not seeing the tide turn sort of among friends as much as I am on social media.
Yeah, I think the thing that they need to do is have a rhythm. And I think what you're saying, I don't think you want to take that out of Romo, but it has to make sense, like what he's saying. Like you can't just say over and over that these QBs are going to play each other forever. We're going to see, Josh Allen and Burrow and Mahomes. And he said that about 1,000 times. You got to give me a little bit more than that. And I do think that we saw this with Nance, with Phil Simms, that it went the wrong direction. And we're kind of seeing that again with Romo. It goes the wrong direction for whatever reason, if it's personality differences between the two, whatever the reason is for that. But they just don't seem to be on the same page. That takes us to Burkhardt and Olson. So they're in, year 6 or 7 for Romo and Nance. Olson and Burkhardt are in year 2. And this is a credit. This is where Kevin Burkhardt, we can judge him fully as a play-by-player. Is he there, with Joe Buck, with Ian Eagle? Is he at that level? He's near. Is he at that level? I'm not positive. But this is what Burkhardt brings, okay? He's a great guy. And I know that you're going to say, well, a lot of these people are great, and they are. A lot of them are great guys. But what Burkhardt has is that likability factor, and he's able to relate to people, the type of person who can relate to, someone who's sweeping the floors, and then he can relate to A-Rod. And that comes across, and that's someone you want to hang out with. That's why he was so popular. He might have been the best sideline reporter, at least that I've ever seen, when he was with the Mets at SNY. He took that to another level. And Olson, we've had him on the podcast.
Well, let's stick with Burkhardt for a quick second and that likability. And you mentioned, the guys sweeping the floors, but I think where you were going with that perhaps was likability to where he's able to bring Olson along. It's a likability in the booth. Olsen likes him, and that's plainly obvious and comes out in the broadcast. Is that what you were talking about there?
Here's the thing, you're a team, right? And so if you're a team, you need to be there for each other and try to make each other look good, knowing that if I make you look good, John, like on our podcast, you're going to make me look good. It's better for the whole podcast.
I make this look good.
And, you do the best you can with me.
I do. I appreciate you do make me look good. I don't do as good a job with you.
No.
You booed my who's up. I don't know what to do with that, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The WB, man. Or the CW. I always say the WB. Why is that? The CW. So, yeah, so there's a team. So they like each other. They're only in year 2. I think it was a little early. If, Fox could have had their way, they would like Olsen to have another year of seasoning before he got this big job. But Aikman left and Buck left. And so here they are. Look, it's still February 12th is the big date for them. Glendale, Arizona, the Super Bowl, because that's when you have 100 million people watching, and that's where the lights are turned on. They have to do the same broadcast. They can't be different, but that's where you kind of really judge them, because that is a different, you could say it's not a different animal, and you could, they should treat it like it's just another game, but it's not. And it's not going to feel like that. And it's different.
Okay. So Burkhardt and Olsen had the Cowboys and 49ers. Andrew, you mentioned this in your New York Post Sports Plus newsletter. And end of the game, Cowboys Dalton Schultz catches a pass and goes out of bounds, and this was Olsen on the telecast.
3rd and 1. That's not a chunk play, but it is a first down. It'll stop the clock with 27 seconds. No, they're going to wind the clock.
Yeah, you have to be going forwards if you're contacted going out of bounds. You got to fight through that contact.
They're going to run the play instead of spiking it. Prescott being chased. In trouble. Throws into traffic. Incomplete with 10 seconds left.
Yeah, so let's go back to the Dalton Schultz catch where they wound the clock. When you go out of bounds, you have to be going forwards if you are contacted by the defender. So you see how Dalton Schultz is kind of running sideways? Travarius Ward, he knows the rule. They coach that. You've got to turn up, be physical into contact, and get that official to stop the clock.
I appreciated that because he was right on top of it. He mentioned it right away, and he was right. So I thought that was a good one right there.
Yeah, the whole Fox production team was real good with that, because it's quick. They go to the next play, then they come back to it, and he totally explain like what just happened, because and that's what you want to do. Like, we're not all football experts. And so he goes out of bounds. You're like, wait, why didn't they stop the clock? And he gave you a tight end. He's talking about tight end. Obviously Olsen was a great tight end, so it was easy, for him, but that's what you want, and that you have to be on top of, and that's what you're doing, right? And it can be kind of casual, and it doesn't have to always be like that. That's what Romo's very good at, though, too, is Romo doesn't, like when Nance says, do you go for it? He doesn't make it like he's like the voice of God every time. I think that's very relatable, and people kind of like that. It's not like, we're all like kind of with social media and then the shows all week. It's like everyone has to have like a totally hard opinion about everything. And Romo a lot of times I'm not sure. I don't know what I do here, which is like fine. Like, you don't always have to you can. It's good to have an opinion in the moment, but if you don't, that's fine too. But that was just good analysis.
Here's the thing about Burkhardt and Olsen is that they had Dallas versus San Francisco, a rivalry game, tight all the way through. It came down literally to the last play. It's I don't want to say this is easy, but that's an easy game to be announcer for. Joe Davis and Daryl Johnson had the day before had a blowout game. It was the Eagles and the Giants, and you talked in your Who's Up that Burkhardt and Olsen were not the story. Daryl Johnson and Joe Davis, they weren't the story either. They just called a very professional game, I thought. It was I don't think they did anything that made me say, we got to get that clip to get on this pod. But I just thought that they sort of managed their way through what was a pretty boring game. It was a game that was never in doubt. And I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
Well, this is where we get into the broadcasters, right? And where do they make a difference, right? If you look at Monday Night Football's ratings, they're actually down this year slightly with Buck and Aikman, even though more buzz and you have the Manning cast. Now, I think Monday Night Football is going to be on the upswing going forward. They didn't get the Bills-Bengals game, of course, with the Damar Hamlin situation and that game getting canceled. So that would,
they also have flex scheduling coming in next
flex
season.
scheduling coming next year. And then Fox they had their best ratings. And so how much do these announcers make a difference is a good question. And this is what I'd say. And it kind of gets back to what we're talking about with the remote broadcasters. You can't put like a number on it, but over time, there is an enthusiasm, like the best broadcasters, there's an enthusiasm to their calls that helps sell the game. And that's not the job. They're supposed to be journalists, even though it's different. They're all, the league is very heavy-handed. We know that. And so, but they are making the game more exciting. You see that in lesser sports. That's like sometimes been a big problem for years in soccer. Sometimes it's a problem in women's sports where people watching like the game. So give me your best. Treat us like we know and like the sport. It's not 1975. Everyone has access to a lot of information. So I'm not saying you have to be talking. We talked about this. You don't have to be overly complicated, but it is important. And so, Davis and Moose, it's an okay crew, right? Greg Olsen, if Tom Brady, we'll get to Brady in a moment. If Brady does come out, I think he's going to play next year. This feels like that's what all the indications are. He can, use expletives left and right. I think he's playing. It sounds. I would be surprised if he doesn't play, from what I can tell. Olsen's making around $10 million now as the number one for Fox Sports. He goes down to $3 million around there if he goes back to number 2, but he's playing his way into being in that conversation. If you're Greg Olsen in your mid to late 30s, you got to be pretty excited. You're with the quarterbacks basically in terms of those next jobs. The Collinsworth job in 4 years. You're not retiring Chris. I'm not retiring you. But it will be. NBC already had Drew Brees. They looked like they're doing an heir apparent. That didn't work out. McVay could be up for that job. Olsen, if Brady comes in, maybe he's up for that job. So it gets interesting. And Olsen he's putting himself in that position. Still ways to go. I'm not ready to fully anoint him, but he's going in the right direction.
Okay, let's play the what if game. What if Tom Brady retires? What is Fox going to do?
Well, they have if he wants to do it, he's doing it. I think you got a relationship with Tom Brady. I think that you're talking about something different though with Tom Brady. He has gotten into the class of Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time. I think I put Peyton Manning also in that list in a lot of regards, but Brady, there will be a lot of focus on Brady. You think we're talking about Tony Romo and Jim Nantz and Olsen and Burkhardt? You imagine with Tom Brady, if he does it,
we'll have an emergency pod. The first Sunday game, we'll have it right after that.
We'll do a pod after every comment he makes. Yeah, I think he'll be in the booth. I don't think there's any question about that. If he wants to do it, we've talked about this for now months. There is feeling that maybe Brady never does it, which would be great for Greg Olsen. But I don't know. I think he's playing. I don't think there's not much to me indication. He got divorced. And from all reports, Giselle was the one who really wanted him to retire. Now that he's divorced, that changes that scenario. And so it just feels like he's going to the Raiders, or, if the 49ers will lose this weekend, maybe he ends up there, or who knows where, back to the Patriots, Miami, who knows? He's going to end up in Nashville with, Titans. I just think he's going to play. I'd be surprised. That said, though, yeah, I think it's in Brady's hands. They have a signed contract. So if he wants his $37.5 million, he's going to have to do the games.
Yeah, I live, as you know, in the Washington, D.C. market. Do you know what the Commanders would give for a quarterback in his, in his mid-40s?
It is pretty incredible.
There are a lot of teams that he would be able to play for, no doubt, if he wants to continue playing.
Yeah, again, I'm not privy to what, his thoughts, and neither is Jim Gray.
But I think the main point for this pod, though, is if he does retire, it's him and Burkhardt they're not going to in the box.
First off, they can't get out of it. You got a contract.
Then it'll be Joe Davis and Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen. There's the chance. I think also it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Possible that if he retired, that maybe he takes a year off. Maybe he waits and says, I'm not doing that yet. I mean, I don't think that's impossible. Like, I think it starts when he wants it to start, but it's his job if he wants it. What do you think though of him with Jim Gray? I thought that was kind of weird. I got to be honest. I mean, I've been around a lot of athletes. I've covered a lot of athletes. I've asked them a lot of questions. You're doing a paid podcast with, I don't know if Larry Fitzgerald was on at that moment, but with Larry Fitzgerald and Jim Gray. Jim Gray is like your buddy. You got to know he's going to ask you that question, right? And then he's like swearing. I thought that was weird.
Jim Gray is certainly he talked to Brady beforehand to say like, hey, listen, these are areas that we're going to cover. And even if he didn't, if you're Tom Brady, you have to know that that's coming. That seems very performative to me. It seemed like something that he just kind of wanted to answer for everybody else that's going to ask him after that pod about what he's going to do. A nice boring answer would have invited people to continue asking him about it. And he basically said, as harshly as he could, he's going to decide on his time.
And that, kids, is what we call a transition, because we're going to performative. We're going to talk about Stephen A. Smith.
By the way, I took a look at the rundown. I was like, how did we get Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, and Shannon Sharp and on our rundown?
John acts like I'm like the producer. I just send him a rundown. He has no say in it. Like, I just hear the rundown. No, you know what? It is. John just
I'm
shows
as curious as everybody else about what we're going to say about these three.
John just shows up, his shades on.
Turn down for what?
He gets handed the rundown. We got AC White and Chris Mason, and they're there giving him he only has blue M&Ms. It's all ready for him. He's high maintenance Orange is what we call him. Behind his back. Now it's public. Right. So the rundown comes.
I burned all that, Andrew.
You saw Stephen A., Shannon, and Skip, and what were you thinking? So what do you think we're talking about here?
Of course, Shannon Sharp at the Lakers game.
Yes.
Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless having some issues to where Shannon Sharp didn't show up at on the FS1 show, the Not First Take. Oh, well, what on earth is the name of that show? Why can't
Undisputed. Undisputed.
Talk about performative.
All right, we're gonna play. All right, let's stop playing Guess the Rundown and let's get to it. All right, why I put that on there is what these shows have become. They've become performance art. Like, if anybody's really watching, and I've always said this for years and years about talk radio, if you're watching or listening to be informed, that's kind of seems silly, even though I do think some people do. People have jobs and they're coming home and this is how they find out about sports, but it's just sort of a caricature version of it. It can be entertaining, and Stephen A. and Skip have really gone all in on the Cowboys. Stephen A., with his whole act, and with Michael Irvin coming on Mondays. I mean, it's worked. I have to say, I put it on this Monday to see what he was going to do and see what it was like. And would I do that if this wasn't my job? Probably not. I wouldn't care that much, but it's performative, easier to do than say. And they do a good job with that. Now, let's get to what's your opinion on Shannon Sharp, though, making a scene at the Laker game. I don't think you can do that.
No, I thought that was, he did come on and apologized for doing that afterwards, but for somebody who has spent a lot of time complaining about fan behavior at the games, and then he turns into be a fan that almost starts a brawl at one of the games. And maybe you can answer this: how did he stay on the court? I can't imagine that he wasn't thrown out of the arena.
Yeah, this is what happens in LA. I mean, Will Smith stayed in his seat at the Oscars, so I don't know. It's a different ball game, I guess, there with stars. Shannon Sharp's so interesting to me because these younger players, sometimes it feels like when they go back at him, they kind of act like it's like Barkley. It's like, yeah, dude, I had a way better career than you. Like, there's like almost like nobody could say anything to these guys where they can't just be like, no, I was better than you. Like, there's almost, there's like three people who can say, no, I had a better, Brady could say that to Shannon Sharp if he wanted to, maybe a couple other quarterbacks, but the guy's a Hall of Famer, one of the great tight ends of all time. Look, the interesting thing about this stuff is that we're not talking about them unless they do this. So that's sort of where it goes in. Stephen A's gotten to a point where, he's comparing Beyonce to Rihanna, and he said Beyonce, he likes her better. Because it's like a whole thing. He had to apologize. I mean, it was like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like, is this the end of time? Is this how we end? Because this is what everyone's getting worked up about. That Stephen A. said that Beyonce's
one
better
thing
than
I
Rihanna.
do know. Like everybody hates Skip Bayless, right? And Stephen A. is sort of polarizing. It is difficult to break through late morning, early afternoon programming, and they have all broken through in terms of people wanting to watch them, or at least people talking about them, and some of their things going viral. So it's difficult to do. They've been able to do it. It's not my cup of tea, but it's
It's not my cup of tea either, but I will say this about Stephen A. obviously very good at TV. Shannon Sharp, very good at TV. Skip Bayless is very good at TV. I mean, we can talk about his takes are stupid, and some of them I found, unbelievably dumb, but he's good at TV. Like, I mean, there is an art to it. He's 70, I believe, and he can still get into like the Cowboys like he's 7 years old. So, I mean, that's one thing.
Well, you know what Jamie Horowitz always used to say, and he was the guy that sort of got him on the first take way back when, was he used to go around and people used to be like, that's Skip Bayless. I hate him. And he was like, anybody that inspires that kind of passion with that many people, he wants that guy on the air. And that's totally what Skip Bayless does.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully somebody hates you or me, so we get a lot of
It's got to be you. I'm the likable one of the two of us.
I can tell. I think it's me. Oh, yeah. All right. Live Golf. I gave you all the credit. I, fluffed you up at the beginning, and then now you're just totally burying me. All right, let's talk about it. Live Golf, the CW. What's your big takeaways? You're on top of it. What's your takeaways of why this happened? Is it good? Is it bad? What's your take?
My take on this, it's very similar to my take on MLS going to Apple, which was Live Golf was not going to get a U.S. TV deal this year. Everybody was telling them no. CBS, NBC, ESPN, Turner all have deals with the PGA Tour. Fox was basically the Liv would had to back up a Brinks truck and pay them for a hefty amount for a time buy to get on Fox. So this was really the only deal that was out there for Liv if they wanted to get on established network television. There's no rights fee associated with it. It's not a time buy, but there's no rights fee. Liv is paying for all the production. They're going to share the advertising revenue. But what I think is important about this is it's only a 2-year deal. There's a 1-year option on it. So it's not like the NFL deal where Liv is tied for until 2030. So this is an acceptable way to get into the U.S. market, to test some things out, to see what works, what doesn't work. And in 2 years, if they can demonstrate that people are watching it, the one thing I know about media is that people are going to pay for programming like the Slap League.
I was about to drop a Kathleen Finch from TBS Entertainment. She's put on the Slap League. I'm sure she'd put on Live. She wouldn't care.
Yeah, they totally would do that. And so this is a step there, and it's an interim step. It's a 2-year deal. So we'll see. And if you're Next Star, of course, I'm going to talk about RSNs, but one of the things about regional sports networks and their demise is that these local broadcast channels like the CW are out there looking at possibilities to get into sports. Scripps has already started to negotiate to try to get some out there. Next Star, this is a first step to develop a sports business or a sports division, which could also allow them to get in there to where it'll be just like when we were kids and you could see, the Orioles or the Nationals on WDCW down here in DC. And it's, it
actually makes some sense. You agree?
I think so. Totally. If you're a team, you have to be prepared. Like I use this line all the time. Adam Silver said there will be pain. You have to be prepared to want to take less money, but reach more people. And if you reach more people, you'll get more butts and seats. You'll sell more Cokes. You'll sell more merchandise, and you'll start to develop the fan base again. That's not able to watch the RSNs as the cord cutting is happening.
But that would kill your streaming idea last week with the MLB network.
I disagree. I think that one of the things that Scripps said that they're looking into is not exclusive. It's not going to be an exclusive deal. It's like if you want a full, broadcast coverage, we can give that to you. If you want to then stream on top of it, go ahead and do that as well.
Interesting. LIV deal, I think they would have done well if it was Fox, although Fox does second-rate remotes. They do. It is Fox. And besides that, Fox is really, they do a great job. They're, they have a great plan. And I think that would have been a really good fit for LIV. That would have felt like a real home run because it would have been on par. See what I did there?
It's time to go home there, ball.
You know what? I didn't catch that. That was good.
CBS and NBC and ESPN. But to me, what I've said the other day in NYP TV Sports Plus and my newsletter on Monday, it's like they hit one into the sand trap, but a good lie where if they have the proper wedge shot, they could get it onto the green. But I don't know if it's a great, I think that's a tough, you don't want to be in the sand. So I think that's, to me, where this deal is. I don't really like it's on the app on Fridays. That's going to get very few people. All right. You have to download the CW app. And, that's one thing the affiliate issue, will all these affiliates pick it up, in New York? Will it be worth them to pick up LIV Golf on the weekends? You mentioned DC in your newsletter that you have every Monday nights in terms of maybe not, the DC market, but the Baltimore market might pick it up. You're just speculating there, but that's something to watch because they can't just tell the affiliates to pick it up. They have
the DC channel is actually owned by Nexstar, so they're likely going to keep it. But I think the point I was making is that the neighboring town could make a totally different decision than one, and that, Andrew, is going to be the biggest LIV Golf media story this year. Is going to be determining who gets it, who picks it up, what affiliates take it, and what affiliates don't. And there's going to be a lot of pressure from a lot of people on these affiliates saying, "Do not take it." It's going to be it's going to be reams of ink being spilled on this.
Also, the numbers, like what do they get? How many people are watching this? Because like you said, that's what's gonna, when it's up in 2 years, if people are watching it, then maybe some other networks will be interested. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like I don't really foresee big numbers for this, and maybe that's not what they need. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's, to me, it's they need to do the deal. They could act like it was competitive bidding. Nobody else wanted it. And
it was not competitive.
It wasn't competitive.
That's great. Yeah.
BS is just BS.
Here's one other storyline that I'm going to be watching is starting with the Masters. I think the majors are going to benefit greatly from this because all of a sudden you have sort of like, the villains playing the heroes. And what if you're Phil Mickelson and you're battling for the lead? Is CBS going to show all of Mickelson's shots? Are they going to are they going to default to the PGA Tour golfers?
No, you got to show the shots.
You and I say that, but they're in bed. They're in partnership with the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be.
Phil Mickelson might be a bad example because he's so well known. But what about?
But even any of them, I don't know. You're not going to show the LIV golfers. I think that's crazy to me.
Something to watch. I'm just saying, something to watch.
Your prediction they will, or well, now you said it. It's kind of like they're not gonna.
I think that the complaints that I've heard, and I haven't checked this, so the unfounded rumor alert here.
Okay.
Get the siren out, Chris. Last year, NBC for the U.S. Open did not show as often.
That was a complaint. Yeah,
that was a complaint that I heard.
All right, let's finish it up. After you just did the unfounded rumor, good job keeping this podcast, the podcast of record for sports media. If you want unfounded rumors, let's start off. We got this prediction, we got all right. Now we're ending with unfounded rumors. Good one.
Yeah, something that I would not have printed. I just said on the pod. So what do you want?
Pod. No editing that. All right, U.S. Soccer and HBO Max. When you're eating your blue M&Ms, you threw that on the end of the rundown. Why so?
So last week, the U.S. women had it was HBO Max's first sports stream. Of course, because it's not Nielsen rated, there's no third party. We're not going to hear at all what the viewership was like. You won't be surprised that internally they were telling us that, it beat our expectations, but we have no idea what that was. This week, the U.S. men's national team, they're going to be streamed on Wednesday night on HBO Max. They have another game on that'll be on TNT on Saturday. And I just thought it was important to make a point that, especially, we talk about the NBA deal all the time that's coming up. We're seeing Warner Brothers Discovery Sports sort of how they're moving forward with streaming. This is more than a test of streaming. This is an actual deal they have with U.S. Soccer. Where this goes, they've talked a lot about Discovery Plus and HBO Max sort of merging services, and sort of how this. From everything I've been told, they've been happy with the start of streaming, albeit it's just one game. And so this is it's just something that bears watching.
Couple of things before we go here. I watched a little bit of that. I'm not going to give a total A+ yet, but I did think Luke Wildman, their play-by-player, sounded pretty good. So that was a plus for them. The one thing I didn't understand about this deal is why they spent so much money on this deal. I don't know if they really understood what's happening with soccer. First off, the U.S. women, so the qualifying games for the U.S. women don't really matter because they're so good and they're going to make it. There's no question. U.S. is automatically in the 26 World Cup. So those games, people might want to watch them, but they just won't have the intensity. There's no chance that they're not going to make it. They're automatically in 26. And then in 30, the field, and actually 26, the field goes to 48 teams. So it seems almost unfathomable that we won't make it in 30.
What if the U.S. doesn't make that?
Yeah, exactly. Like we would have made it the last time when we didn't make it in 18. And so I didn't really understand these deals. The games they got, they're not going to be that important. They're not going to get
our roles on this pod. You're the big soccer guy. I'm a casual soccer fan.
Yep.
I love watching the U.S. team play. I love the rivalry with Mexico and
it's a random game. You're not going to be on this men's game this week. There's no chance you're watching.
The ones this week, no, I could care less. But when the U.S. plays Mexico, whether it's a friendly or whether it matters, you're not going to watch that? I'm totally going to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want some juice to it. There's a little bit. Yeah, U.S.-Mexico, fine. So still, that's a lot for U.S.-Mexico. That's the only real big rivalry we have in
Costa Rica.
I mean, maybe you get up for. I know John gets up for U.S. Costa Rica. Canada's very good. I'm not saying there's not some interesting matches. They have some good players that you want to see the development. I'm not saying nobody's going to watch. I'm just saying there's not really much importance.
There's not as much.
They're not like playoff games,
yeah.
Which is what kind of you want when you think of qualifying rounds. Is that the U.S. These games mean something, and they're not friendlies, but they're almost friendlies for most of these games because they're just not going to mean that much unless we really, what the bet. So it's that deal I didn't understand. It was a lot of money, and I don't think everyone else kind of realized the implications of what's going on in terms of the World Cup and then the expanded field. So that's going to do it.
Before we sign off, Andrew, I have some breaking news. Following our last pod, Colin Campbell
of Omaha Productions.
Omaha Productions got my address and sent me the softest blanket I have ever felt. This is a soft blanket, Andrew. My God.
Yeah, we might have to flashback. This is what happened last week. At the end of the Manning cast, Peyton asked Eli if he got any presents from any of the guests like they did last year. I think Snoop sent him like a chain or something last year. And he said, no, the one thing I got was an Omaha Productions blanket. Now, I don't know if you received this little gift, but I got one of those blankets too. Did you get an Omaha Productions blanket?
Are you kidding me? I'm not even on the mailing list. I did not get the Omaha Productions mailing.
All right, well, that's not really the story. I'm not trying to be like, well, I got
ESPN sent me potato chips. I'd rather have the blanket.
Potato chips. I don't know about that one. Sorry, guys. I don't want to. I know people put a lot
seasoning. I don't know about that one.
A nice box. But anyways, yeah. But so Peyton's sending Eli the same blanket that he's sending to me or whatever, whoever sends it from Omaha Productions?
I don't think it came from Peyton. I mean, come on.
You didn't get the blanket, huh?
No, and I'm as positive on those guys as anybody, Andrew.
Listen, I don't listen. You can tell me whatever you want. I'm not changing. Okay, anybody? I mean, send me a blank. I'm not gonna send it back. I mean, thanks. I always tell people when they want, they're like, "Can we send?" He's like, "All right, yeah, no explosives." Yeah. So John didn't get the blanket last week. I don't care about getting the blanket. Colin Campbell, PR guru, Omaha Productions. I don't need the blanket, but please give John a blanket, especially a soft blanket. I gotta be honest, I didn't think the quality was Peyton Manning quality of that blanket. I don't know.
I told my son it was from Peyton, so they gave me some street credit.
A little small. It's a little. I don't know. They could have got a little bigger blanket. It was a smaller blanket.
Yeah, it's going into Goodwill next week.
Let's see. This TB12 handout blankets. We'll do a comparison. The Manning blanket versus the TB12 blanket. All right, that's gonna do it. Blanket coverage of sports media.
What's outside this blanket?
More blankets. That's the point.
Want to thank AC Wyatt, who's in charge of the overall productions, and then Master of Drops from Say It Ain't So Productions via. That's what started about 20 years ago. Chris Mason, you hear all those drops? Those are Masons. We want to thank him. If you could if you could make a nice comment, if you could follow, we appreciate it. All right, see you next week, and then we're off to the Super Bowl soon.
Thanks for listening.